All right, peeps. Today we're talking about the three different types of fractions. Three different types of fractions and what happens when you multiply using those three different types of fractions. First off, we have improper fractions. Now, you guys probably heard of improper fractions. I know a lot of people got cut short in 5th grade last year, but I know a lot of people still heard of these improper fractions. I know the light's hard to see, sorry. Improper fractions are fractions that have the larger number on top. An example would be 8 over 6. 8 over 6 is an improper fraction. The larger value is on top of the smaller value. Another example of that would be 10 over 2. Large number on top, smaller number on bottom. When you multiply by an improper fraction, since this number is on bigger on top, this number is larger than 1. Anytime you multiply times something larger than 1, your answer actually gets larger. Watch. I'm going to start with the number 4. I'm going to use this bottom fraction here, 10 over 2. I'm going to multiply 4, which is actually 4 over 1. 4 times 10 is 40. 1 times 2 is 2. Remember, I started with the number 4. I started with this. I ended with 40 over 2, which also means 40 divided by 2. 40 divided by 2 is 20. I started with 4. I ended with 20. My value got larger. It increased. The word increase means to get bigger or to get larger. So from 4, I increased since I multiplied times an improper fraction. Improper fractions are the only type of fraction you can multiply that will increase your value. I'll give another example on this one right here. Let's say I started with the number 6, which we know is 6 over 1. 6 times 8 is 48. 1 times 6 is 6. 48 divided by 6 is 8. Even though it didn't increase as much, from 6 to 8 is also an increase. All right, the second type of fraction we're going to talk about today are called traditional fractions. And those are the ones we've been working with all of 6th grade so far. So we've seen fractions like 1 over 4, the small numbers on top of the larger number. Another example would be 3/10, smaller number on top of the larger number. Traditional fractions are the opposite of our improper fractions that we just talked about. I know I erased it, but if you go back in the video, you can see it again. They are the opposite. And what I mean by that is, if you were to multiply times a traditional fraction, instead of increasing, it's actually going to decrease or make your fraction or make your value smaller. Watch. Let's start with the number 8. 8 we know is 8 over 1. 8 times 1 is 8. 1 times 4 is 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So you see I started with the number 8. It decreased to give me 2 when I multiply times a traditional fraction. Let's try again down here. So I have 3 over 10. Let's multiply times a bigger number. Let's say I use 20. 20 is 20 over 1. 20 times 3 is 60. 1 times 10 is 10. 60 divided by 10 is 6. So if I go from 20, my start value, to 6, I decreased my value. From 20 to 6, I decreased. It got smaller. See, I remember we talked about improper fractions first. Those increase your value, make it larger. When you multiply times a traditional fraction, those decrease your value. They make it smaller. So the last one we're going to talk about in just a second is fractions that are equal to 1. All right, so fractions that are equal to 1 are fractions that have the same number on the top and same number on the bottom. An example of fractions equal to 1 would be 5 over 5 or 3 over 3. So first off, y'all, when you multiply times 1, you should know that your value doesn't change. 10 times 1 is 1. 13 times 1 is, 10 times 1 is 10, I apologize. 13 times 1 is 13. So when you're multiplying times a value that equals 1, you should expect that your number actually stays the same. Watch. This time I'm going to start with the number 7. Let's use a little bit easier number. Let's use 10. 10 is 10 over 1. 10 times 5 is 50. 1 times 5 is 5. 50 divided by 5 is 10. So y'all, even though I did that math problem, you can see that I started with 10, and at the end, I ended with 10. Let's try one more example here. This 3 over 3. Let's use 25. 25 is 25 over 1. 25 times 3, just like quarters. 25, 50, 75. 1 times 3 is 3. 75 divided by 3. 25, 50, 75 takes me back to 25. So y'all, when you multiply times a fraction that equals 1, it actually stays the same. Look, I started with 25 and I ended with 25. Y'all, please make sure you guys look at these and do a little activity that goes along with this. Identifying the different types of fractions should be pretty easy if you watch through the entire video. If not, please rewind and watch again. It's really about if the bigger number's on top or the bigger number's on bottom or if they're the same number. After that, y'all, please complete the activity. Email me if you have any questions, y'all. Thanks.